Welcome to the EndurHunt podcast. Join me as I share my experiences as an emergent hunter, offer advice on how to overcome challenges, and pursue your passion for hunting. This is a special episode for me. When this comes out, obviously we're recording it early, but when this comes out, it'll be the 6-year anniversary of my very first hunt ever. Calling this episode 6 Years of Hunting Adventures. Peter and I left for Montana on November 8th, and our very first hunt kicked off on November 11th, which is actually Veterans Day. I was a veteran. And although that's not why we picked it, that just so happened to be the dates. This podcast is him and I talking about what led us to be where we are today. I'm coming up on 2 years hosting this podcast. I've been hunting for 6 years, 7 seasons, hunted in 7 different states. It's been an amazing journey. And I'm just very fortunate and lucky that he convinced me to try and go on this hunt with him. And I hope you enjoy us talking about everything that's happened over the last 6 years, the adventures we've gone on, the experiences we've had, some of the things we've learned, and just enjoy the conversation. All right, with that being said, let's get to it. Well, I have Peter with me. It is officially November, and I already recorded an intro to this podcast, but essentially what I wanted to do is this podcast is going to come out November 11th, which is the 6-year anniversary of our first hunting trip together, my first time hunting. And it's the last podcast I did, I was reflecting on the fact that I joined the Marines 13 years ago, which means that's when I started shooting for the first time. And I'm realizing that I'm getting old, which kind of sucks to think about. But I thought it would be cool for you and me, and I know we've done some podcasts talking about individual hunts that we've gone on, but spend some time just kind of talking about the hunts, the experiences we've been on over the years, and then wrapping up with our current hunting situation, how it's going for me in Tennessee, you in PA, and then we can kind of go from there. What do you think?
Yeah, man. Sounds good to me.
Oh, man, such good memories. I was looking back at the photos on my phone back from when we went on that first trip because I have an album full of it. And back in 2018, you still had a beer belly. I had no facial hair and looked like a child. And the whole drive was, what was it, 2.5 days it took us to go from PA to.
Yeah, because we ended up making a stop on the way, so it was a whole. Yeah, it took way longer than it should have. That's for sure.
Yeah. And they were worried about us. I remember when we got into the lodge, they were like, we were about to call the rescue party to look for you guys.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, we went with an outfitter. So Peter's wife, this is all his fault. We were actually texting about this in our little hunting group text that we have, so Peter, while I was deployed, for those that don't have background, Peter's wife got him this hunting trip. So it's public land, DIY, but the outfitter helps you get the tag and you get to stay in their lodge. They give you food and stuff like that. So it was totally DIY, but we had a place to stay, a nice place to stay warm. And I was deployed, and Peter reaches out to me and he's like, hey, I'm going on this hunt in Montana and I don't trust anyone else to go with me. And he's like, do you want to go? I'm like, I've never hunted in my life, but sure, let's figure this out. So I was living in New Jersey at the time, technically. I lived in New Jersey, but was deployed. And I straight up did Texas hunter education online because it was the only state I think I could get it in, which was ironic because I ended up living in Texas for 4 years after that. And this is what kicked it off. And since then, I've been doing this podcast for coming up on 2 years. We got our buddy Dre on in hunting, and his buddy listened to the podcast, and he just took his first deer ever hunting his first season this year. So we have Nil to thank for all of this. This is all your fault. All of the money that I have spent, all of the money that Peter has spent, all of the adventures that we've gone on. It's all her fault. Do you remember what you were thinking when she got you that? Like what was going through your mind?
So the whole setup for me was kind of random. I hunted a little bit at that time. I didn't hunt a whole bunch, and our kid would have been real small at that time. And like she kind of surprised me with that trip out to Montana. She went through that outfitter, and when that all came to, it was very exciting. But I realized that going by myself in the grizzly country and would have been Southwest Montana wasn't a great idea. So Yeah, naturally, I kind of leaned on you at that time because everyone else I knew was kind of an idiot. So, and most guys really weren't into it. And not that I knew you were, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. We didn't see any grizzlies, although we did see those mountain lion tracks circling our own tracks, which was not fun to say the least, I'd
Dude,
say.
that thing was on top of the ridge. We were probably off the backside of the ridge, what, 50, 60 yards glassing. That thing would have been
Yeah.
right on top of that ridge behind us, watching us, because his prints were on top of ours.
Yeah.
Never heard a
Well,
thing.
we hiked that ridge and then went down. We were like a third from the top, I think, and we were in some trees and we're using them as cover to glass across the drainage to the other side. That was where we found that little three. Well, he was actually, I think, if I remember correctly, he was actually a pretty big 3 point, but they wanted us to take
Um,
4 points, or was it? Or was he a big 2 point?
he
I think
was
he
a
was a big
big
two
he
point.
was a big fork. He was a big 2 point on both sides, and they wanted a three on each, a three on one side minimum is what they wanted.
Yeah,
So
and that
technically,
was
we were
just the
three on one.
outfitter.
Yeah, which was weird because we weren't outfitted, right? But that was just their thing. Like, if you're gonna hunt and crash a deer ranch while you hunt here, that's what they wanted.
Yeah, those are their rules. But man, that was a lot of fun. That trip, I mean, it was cold. I remember the high temperature was like 15 degrees while we were there.
Yeah,
And that I was not ready for. I did not have the right gear at all. I bought the Walmart stuff and used whatever I could. It's like the camo, the only camo I had was military camo. And I was wearing like mismatched colors. I was a mess.
it
Absolute
was a
mess.
mess, but it was. Yeah, I remember like the one day hiking up that same hill we were going up to get to the top where we kept seeing elk tracks that we knew were made the night before. And I remember going up there and it was like -3 in the car when we were walking out, and it was awful.
I remember we would I think we took turns playing like games on our phones, and the other
Yes.
person would like glass, and we did that because our freaking hands were freezing. So like you would take a few minutes playing games, and the other person would glass, and you'd have to go back and forth, and then we would like stand up and walk around and get in the sun a little bit because it was so freaking cold.
Oh, dude, and thankfully we were like somehow I don't know what we stopped at the Walmart in Bozeman and got wool socks, which was like the saving grace of the whole thing
We
because we didn't
stopped
have
because I didn't have tire chains. I remember when we were driving through some parts of Montana, there were on some of the highways they said mandatory chains, and I was like, I don't have chains. So we stopped in Walmart, and I remember losing my mind because we stopped in this Walmart, and like the most picturesque background of the
yeah.
freaking mountains, and I was just like, this is too pretty to be a Walmart. But that was also my first time actually going out west because I think I went to Colorado once when I was in the Marines, but we didn't get to leave the base. And I got to go to Washington State once, and I got to explore Seattle, but that was the extent of it. I never actually got to explore outside, but that's why we went to that Walmart.
That was really random, but thankfully they had some wool socks because I feel like if we went out there with the gear that we had initially planned, it would have been so much worse. Could have lost some
Oh,
toes on that one.
dude. Yeah, I've never, to this day, I don't think I've ever hunted in anything even remotely that cold
No,
because
even
we,
when we were in Montana last year, it wasn't near as bad.
no, but I really liked using my, I got those first light down pants and they're, I don't know if I don't remember what they call them. I think they're supposed to be camp socks or whatever, but they're wool, they're not wool, they're down like booties almost. I
Yeah,
used those glassing a couple days. Primo, highly recommend.
that was pretty nice, man. You look comfortable.
I was comfortable. That was the day when you and your dad were hunting over that river bottom, and we thought you were gonna see whitetails in that spot. We just ended up seeing a ton of muley does.
Yeah, that was kind of the
Um,
last year was kind of a bust on that one.
yeah, man, last year was rough. I mean, we've had a lot of rough hunts though, like where we see animals and we just can't make things happen. And I mean, that's part of it though, right? Like that's
Oh,
the adventure and the journey is figuring it out.
I want to go back as soon as I. It's usually like we leave and somewhere around getting sick of driving through Iowa and Nebraska. I'm like, dude, I want to go back.
I mean, I didn't want to leave. I wish we had more time. I felt like we finally figured out Montana, like at least that spot. That was And what were we? We weren't hunting the BLM.
We were hunting
Well,
on block management.
that was it. We were hunting on the block management, and we
It was,
finally found a spot. We found two spots where I think we finally figured out how to hunt them, but it was too little, too late. And what are you gonna do? You know,
well, and now we can't even go back to that area because they're cutting tags really badly. So
dude, mule deer populations are rough right now. I mean, it's kind of tough. I, I really want to fill a mule deer tag, but it's just tough, man. Like the populations are going down. Getting tags is hard, and knowing how to hunt them is tough. We've never gone to the same place twice,
yeah,
and
that's the hard
that,
thing.
yeah. But it's hard to get tags. I mean, like I'm building. We're both building points all over the place. But so we did Montana first. So that was November 2018. We did that. And we didn't get anything. We had a great time. That was our first Western hunting experience, my first hunting experience. And I'm trying to think of some of the other notable stuff that happened on that hunt. I mean, I think that mule deer fork was the best chance we had because we ran into a couple groups of does. But that was really it, right?
Yeah, it wasn't on that one. We saw one really good buck on that whole trip. We saw he was like a big 3x4. You remember he was dogging the doe. So that same backside we were talking about that we were sitting on where we had the mountain lion tracks. One morning there was a doe that came up and he was right behind her and they were at like 500 and we could not get him to stop or slow down or do anything. And also neither one of us could shoot that much at that point.
No. I mean, I shot that far in the Marines, but I hadn't shot my bolt action that far. Living in New
Right.
Jersey, that's one of the things that I like. You on the East Coast, it sucks. It's so hard to find places to practice shooting long distance. Like finding a range that shoots. How far can you shoot? You have that one place you can do 300 now, right?
Yeah, I have a local one that's 300, and I hear there's clubs that go out to 6, 7, even 1,000, but most of them suck. Like it's like invite only, or you have to wait for someone to die so you can get in. So yeah, it's not ideal, especially for someone like me, where I'm not originally from this area. I don't know a whole lot of people, so it's like trying to make those connections, which I'm working on it, but most of those clubs too tend to be in like central Pennsylvania, so that's still 2 3 hour drive just to go shoot,
Uh-huh.
which it's hard to just make that time.
Yeah. Fortunately, when we moved here, I found one of those like clubs. I thought it was going to be the same thing, man, where you got to wait like 2 years for someone to die and then a spot will open up. But I think it took about 6 months. I think we were here about 6 months and then we got accepted. I wanted to do the military because it was cheaper, but I wanted Kristen to be able to go. So I got the family membership and that range you can shoot out to 1250. I think you can shoot out to 1250. I've never shot that far. The first I've shot's 1,000, but it's just nice to know that that's there, and it's a 45-minute drive from where I live, so it's not bad at all.
I met somebody recently that said they have a place that they could shoot out to 1,000, so I'm gonna try to bothering him to see if we could get out there a little bit more.
Yeah, that would be great practice. I mean, most of the hunting you're doing in PA is not going to be more than I imagine 100 yards, right? Like a rifle shot,
Yeah,
or are you shooting up to 300 maybe on a field?
honestly, those big fields are 300 maybe, but then even at that point, it's there's almost no way that there isn't going to be a guy between you and them,
Hmm.
or they're going to shoot 300 and not be in some kind of sketchy way too close to a house in the road. Like at least the spots I'm at, like where it gets a little hairy, just for trajectory wise. I think 200 for the most part is about where I'd max out here locally where I hunt this time or this year at least.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why the public that I hunt, you can't do rifle. We only have archery and muzzleloader. That's it. So, starting actually before this podcast launches, we have our muzzleloader season kicks off. So I get to hunt the rut with a muzzleloader, which I'm super excited about. That'll be fun. But we're getting off topic. We've skipped many years of hunting doing this.
Yeah,
Um, so we get back from that Montana hunt, and the next one was Utah. So tell me your thoughts about that first Utah hunt we did.
we overestimated ourselves. I think we could have picked buddies better. To be fair, like
Ooh.
That's a tough one, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like you could, not that I was in great shape, but like maybe pick people we want to hunt with that were going to keep up, or I don't know, maybe not carry like a 15-pound rifle, right? Which he still had a good time. Like I'm not saying he didn't have a good time, and to be fair, I'm the one that screwed that trip up, anyways, because I got sick.
You didn't screw it up.
Well, not screwed up, but we had to climb down early because we weren't sure what was going on. Then I got pretty sick up there,
Oh
but
yeah.
Utah, as far as Utah goes, both times we were up there, we got an elk. I got into a good
Hmm.
bull on that first trip with the rifle, and you got into a good bull on that trip. And I just had
Yeah.
absolutely no shot on that bull. And that would have been opening day, and I was calling because I felt like I heard elk, and I remember calling and just cow calling, and that thing came, and he came in silent, maybe an hour, 45 minutes later, and he worked himself right below us. But it was weird. We were sitting on this little knob, and he kind of worked at the bottom side. You were gone. You took off, and it was me and Dre, I believe, at that time would have been
Yeah, it
together.
was.
And that bull came in. He came in right below us, and all I remember seeing from him is by the time I caught it, it was movement, and it was just he had long tines that swooped back, and at that point he caught movement when I tried to get my rifle up because I was kind of kneeling, seated as we were in that spot to try to cover. When I tried to get my rifle up, he caught the movement. He was gone. There was no way, and he came in maybe 40 yards. He was close. But there was just no way to take that shot. And then once he took off, it was so thick up there, we never found him again.
Yeah, mine was similar. I think when you mentioned that he came in silent, that made me think. I'm pretty sure the actual hunting encounters we've had or I've had with every bull has been silent. They haven't made a lot of noise. Now, we had that one the second time we were in Utah when it was archery, where you could hear him come in and then he caught our wind and the wind shifted or whatever and he bolted out. But that was the most noise. We got in that bugling match with the one, but that was we never had a chance at him. That was after legal light, and we were just having fun at that point because I mean, who doesn't want to get into a bugling match with a big ass bull?
He was far, and he had no intention of. He had cows, and he had no intention of leaving them. But he was
Oh
just
yeah, no,
basically,
100%.
yeah. He was hauling ass down that mountain and just bugling back at us like, yeah, so what?
He's like, I got my harem, and you're not touching it. I'm moving.
Pretty
I'm
much,
moving
yeah.
right now. But my bull, the first trip, the thermals were rising because it was early. I think it was either late morning, early afternoon, and the thermals were rising. And I remember it being warm. And this is our first time hunting elk. I don't know what I'm doing. And we're going up, and I feel the wind, the back of my neck. And I hadn't seen any elk except the first day. So I'm just like, whatever. I'm just going to blow some cow calls while we're going up this ridge. We were trying to go over 10,000 because we were getting close to the wilderness area. So there was some wilderness there. It was thicker trees away from people. I didn't think anyone would want to hike up that high. And I'm freaking calling. And sure enough, I look up and a bull comes in silently. The same thing, man. Huge main beams. I didn't get to see how big the tines were, but there's a difference between a raghorn. Their main beam goes like straight up, and then a mature bull, it goes up and then cuts back. And it was the same thing like your bull. I never saw yours, but the way you described it was similar, straight up and back. So I know it was a mature bull, but he was perfectly in line with my scent. I remember looking at him, like making eye contact. And as I lifted my rifle, he just bolted and was gone in seconds. And then we went up there, and there was great sign up there. But at that point, he blew out and never saw anything. And yeah, you were sick as a dog. You could barely walk. And I think Ryan was sick as well at that point. I think you both just got elevation sickness. I mean, we were up there pretty good. We were camping at like 8,000 feet, I'm pretty sure. Right?
Yeah, I think we camped, yeah, like eight. Yeah, eight the first time we were up there. It would have been eight. And then the second time we went to that area, we camped a lot higher. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, that area we camped in had so much sign. And at night, we could definitely hear the elk moving through there. It was just like, I wish we had more time. Like, that's an area I'd like to go back to. Although I feel like the second time we went back in archery, the pressure was so crazy. I think it's just gotten so blown out now. But
Yeah.
that those spots, I feel like those spots would always produce. Just something about that area, the way it's set up. Those elk can live up there, and they could. There's so many little ridges and stuff. They could get away so fast. I think
Hmm.
that's why they hang out up there because we had a lot of the sign up there would have been like really early. It looked like it would have been pre-rut sign from when the elk were probably still bachelored up because it seemed like a lot of stuff was when they were coming out of velvet. A lot of the rubs, a lot of just the trees were messed up. So I think if we ever went back into the area we went into the first time for the rifle hunt, I'd like to go like early archery, pre-rut. I think that would be a cool area to get into for sure.
I was going to say the same thing because I think most of the locals do that too because it just gets bombarded with people during the rut. And I think you've got a better opportunity to capitalize in that early archery season. I think we could have gone in there with less pressure, less people, because they bugled for the first like 2 days we were there, and that was it. It shut down after that. Every elk we ran into was silent. The only things that we called in were other freaking people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, remember that little kid that we called in? The second time we were there, that little kid that came running with the bugle too. He's like, "Is that you or is that an elk?"
Yeah. That was
That's
so
great.
annoying.
That's great.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, we got called into a couple people too, and it was
Oh,
that
for
that was
sure.
when we decided to just move. We were like, screw this, we're going somewhere else. We're going to another spot. We moved to a different drainage, dropped elevation, and tried to do something else, and it worked. We found that big group of elk that had like two young bulls and a bunch of cows, but I would have taken anything at that
Yeah.
point.
I mean, the tag was good for either sex, and I would have been good with either one.
They both
So,
eat great, and we just needed to
yeah.
get some experience under our belt. Of course, after that hunt, I went to Arizona and had my difficult. I was going to start by saying amazing hunt, but that hunt was a suck fest because you didn't see any elk for 6 freaking days. And then, we always tell ourselves it only takes one, it can change any minute. When I was out last, I think Kristen and I went out Sunday and we were out on the evening and it was nothing all day. And I was like, just takes 15 minutes. Everything can change in 15 minutes. It's all it takes is one. And of course, we didn't see anything then. We just saw a group of like 30 turkeys, which is unreal. Tennessee's just got so many turkeys. I can't believe it. But, that morning in Arizona, one elk. My heart skipped like 20 beats, I swear, when Chris told me elk. I was just like, fuck, here we go. The moment I've been waiting for. And when I read through that journal, because I still journal every day when we go out on those
Yeah.
trips, like I did it on Montana last year, and you saw the texts. I was so down in the dumps. I was like, I'm ready to go home. This is a waste of time. My wife is like, I should be home with my wife and making all those excuses and all of that stuff. And for the record, for anyone listening, she's not telling me to go home. She was encouraging me to stay out there and figure it out. This was me letting that inner bitch voice find excuses for me to quit. And thank God I didn't. The number one lesson that I have learned in all of the years of hunting is persistence is the most important thing. Don't give up. You have to keep going, even when it seems impossible, and put yourself out there because if you don't do that, you're never going to find success. I mean, we literally we did not see a single elk in Arizona. We saw one cow, actually. One cow, a glimpse of a cow, the first 5 days of the hunt. We saw nothing. And then on day 6, the day before the last day, my bull, which was a 280-inch bull, a nice bull, and perfect shot at 150 yards, died in his bed. I mean, it just takes one in 15 minutes. And we've gone through a lot of difficult hunts over the years, man. Like, we've done some grind fests, big time.
Yeah. We've done some bad ones, but it never sucked so bad that I wanted to quit after I came home. I always want to quit like at the moment. Like, shoot, I was out 2 days ago and I was like, why am I doing this? But
Bro.
2 days ago, I'm sitting there and then just the spot I set up in, I was like, sweet, mobile set up. Finally, for the first time this year, I actually got to go up in the saddle and not just get stuck in the spot where I thought I could set up and couldn't find a good tree. Got up and I was like, oh man, this place looks good. And then now it's basically dark o'clock, and I'm like, where are they? This wasn't supposed to happen. So
I've been having those moments in my head too lately. I've been questioning, like, do I even know what I'm doing? Should I be hunting? Like, should I just throw in the towel and quit? I have no idea what I'm doing, is how I feel some days. I'm just like, there's nothing going on. I can't see anything. I can't find a spot. Same feelings, man.
I'm still debating whether I'm going to be late to work tonight and try to squeeze in maybe 3 hours before dark. So we'll see what happens.
I'm telling you, man, we're going out. We've got a spot picked to hunt from the ground, and I'm feeling good. We've got good wind there. There's movement. I don't think other hunters are going to be in that spot, but we'll talk about our plans and our setups at the end. Let's talk about a fun hunt that we had. So we did Utah, and we talked about Utah twice already. I feel like we talked about Utah twice, which I just want to give a shout out to Jerry. Jerry killed it on the second time we went to Utah. After the experience we had, Dre did fine. He just didn't have the right gear. Ryan was not in shape. And folks, if you're listening, the best advice that I can give you for preparing for a hunt is work out more than you think you need to. And I'm not talking lifting weights. I'm talking about go hiking. Throw some weight on your back, walk around, because it kicks your butt, especially if you live in low elevation. In Texas, I lived at 500 feet. In Tennessee, I live at 500 feet. You probably live at like 500 feet.
Yeah.
And it's tough. You've got to prepare yourselves. But we got that invitation out to Wyoming, and that was a fun time. Tell me about that.
Oh, dude, that's just such a cake trip. Because we were planning to go to Wyoming anyways, but we were really looking at mule deer tags all over the place, and we didn't have a lot of points. It was more like the 1 or 2 point units. And then you happen to get an invitation from a friend of ours who had some private out there. Oh, some a good chunk of private that we were able to hunt.
Some,
And
yeah, some.
at that point, it was like basically guaranteed tags because one of those units that doesn't have a whole lot of public, so a lot of private, and the tags are pretty low. So we could get them pretty easily with 1 or 2 points, at least at that time. So we ended up going for mule deer and antelope. Me, you, and my old man. I ended up taking my old man with us because I figured what are the odds I'll get this opportunity again? So it'd be a good one to take my father out west because he had never been. And yeah, that was just a fun trip, man. You get so spoiled on that, and then you come home and you're like, oh, this is why public land sucks.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that was just fun. Like you could get away with so much when there's no pressure. I think that's a big thing. Like you could mess up. Like you took some pretty crazy stalks there, and there was just so much opportunity. So you could just do it all day long. And I got out quick. I think I killed on day one.
Yeah, you killed on the first day, like opening day of the season, because we were out there. Yeah, we were out there a day early scouting, and you filled your tag day one.
Yep, day one in the evening, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, in the evening of day one, I killed, and then the old man and you. I think the old man killed the second day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wrong. We left him on those big bluffs and just drove away. He
Oh
liked
my
that
God,
spot,
yeah.
man. He liked that spot, and that was a cool
Yeah, he
spot. Like,
wanted to kill him from up high.
hey, that was if you think about it, as far as cool spots to shoot one from, that was a cool one up in those big rock bluffs. But he got one, and with you, it was a little bit of work because we knocked your rifle off.
Yeah, that was rough. I rode the struggle bus for 2 days. I did not
You
have a good
missed the
time.
buck with 9 lives.
Well, that's how he got his damn nickname,
I
is I
know,
missed him
but
like three
you kept
times.
missing that thing.
Oh,
I can't believe he kept showing up. That's like the dumbest antelope I've ever seen. Just kept bumping into him.
he ain't that dumb. He survived.
Yeah,
And
well,
they showed up after we all filled our tags and was 50 yards away from me or whatever it was.
he was a good looking buck too. He was a good looking antelope.
Dude, I love this buck that's behind me for the people that are watching. I ended up taking this one on the fourth or fifth day of the hunt and shot him at 430 yards. But before that, there was a buck that I think had a little less mass, was much taller. And this is the buck we call the buck with 9 lives. We saw him the day before the season opened, and then basically every day after that, except I missed each time. And what happened is I bumped my gun, and I guess I didn't have my caps on or something, and the dial spun. I was off by a foot at 500 yards, and I don't remember what I was off. We only shot it at 500, and I just readjusted there. But once we got dialed back in, I was perfect. And like, oh man, It was so rough because I'm a good shot. I'm not a great shot. I'm not like trying to toot my horn, but I'm a decent shot. And I'm like, I get buck fever. Do not get me wrong. I blew a shot at a deer. I blow a shot at a deer every season. Who am I kidding?
Yeah.
The first buck every year I completely miss. No matter how good I practice, how far I shoot, I miss the first one every time without fail because I get so damn excited. It pisses me off. Um, but the thing is though, if that ever goes away, if that excitement ever goes away, I should probably just stop hunting because that's like the point, right? Like you should be
Yeah.
excited and happy. You just don't want to wound anything. But yeah, man, I missed that stinking buck at least 3 times, I think. At least three. And I mean, at one point, I had my gun on the mirror of my truck and used that as a rest because I'm like, there he is right in front of us at like 11 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the freaking field. Yeah, and then we didn't see him again after that. We didn't see him again until after I filled this tag and we were trying to do our mule deer tags.
He was cool though.
Yeah.
He was cool. There was a lot. We saw quite a few really good bucks on that property. Like there were some really good ones. I know at one point we were driving. You remember? I don't know if you remember on the back end of that ranch. We got into kind of bumped into a neighbor, and there was a big, huge prairie dog colony back there. It would have been around the
Yeah, and he
time
was
when we
telling
were
us that they had ones hiding in the little coleys or the
yeah,
little
when
whatever.
we were driving out of there. We bumped into a group of does that had a really, really good buck with them. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
There's a few. There's that whole area that had some really, really cool stuff. Like the ranch itself was beautiful. I mean, it had so much cool stuff, so much history there, like old buildings, all that stuff. It was a really neat, like it was still a hunt in a way where like we still got to do our thing. There was no pressure, but there was like no pressure to rush to try to fill tags. Like the typical brown is down thing I'm doing when I'm here at home. And that was really neat. That was a cool experience, just knowing that, like, hey, like if I mess this up, I know there's more of them here.
Yeah, yeah, that was the first hunt where like my buddy, well, our buddy now, was like, do not shoot the thing you see the first day unless it's good. And that's why we scouted first to see like what the trophy potential was. Because he's like, there are nice bucks here. Don't rush. Take your time. Pick the buck that you want. And the one you took on the first day, that was probably a third one, right? The third one of the day that we went after, maybe even the fourth. I can't remember.
Yes, because I actually think he was in one of the groups we saw earlier in that morning. Because there was like a bigger group we saw that morning that had a whole bunch of does and two bucks in it, and there was one buck in the front that was a little bigger, and then this one was in the back, but they were both good. And yeah, I think he kind of came back. It was weird, like that because that group crossed the fence. They went to the neighboring property, and then later he like came back on his own. He was by himself, and he was just working up that ridge. And yeah, I ran over there, laid down, shot off my bino harness at like 400. It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, you took 2 shots, and I remember you thinking you couldn't shoot that far, and then we got you dialed out. I think you shot 400 was the furthest you shot on paper, right? That was how far we took it.
I think yeah, and this would have been like 413 or something like real, just a hair over 400. I shot him at,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was like I don't know. I just got it was stupid now, but like I got excited and I wasn't gonna let it go, so I shot. He had a good backstop because he was like halfway up a ridge, up a coulee, I guess you'd call it. So I shot him the first time, and I shot just over him. I knew I was high, so I adjusted, and then he got a little bit higher, and he kind of crested. So I was like, okay, he's gone. And then it was weird. He kind of followed the line he was on, and ended up with a good back again. So then I shot a second time, and he went down. That was fun. It was a cool trip. Good buck.
I don't think that was a stupid shot to take in retrospect because we had you shoot in practice. I mean, the day before, you shot a solid grouping at that distance. Yeah, you don't have years of experience shooting at 400 yards, but you have years of experience shooting, and we got you dialed in. You knew what your hold was, and you took good shots. I mean, it died quick. Like, there's
Yeah, but
nothing
the
you could.
fact that I finished putting that rifle together 2 weeks before we went on a hunt.
Brother, I just shot my muzzle loader and zeroed it in one time. I've taken literally 9 shots out of that gun, and I'm hunting with it like a week and a half.
Good hair.
So, yeah, I mean, when you and I firmly believe this now with 13 years of shooting experience with a bunch of different guns at different ranges. I think you can shoot just about any gun once you get comfortable with shooting in general and you have good fundamentals. You just have to learn that platform. You take a couple of shots, you figure it out. I think you're good to go. You have to have experience, though. I'm not saying someone who's just starting to shoot can pick up any gun and just figure it out. You have to have experience with shooting a lot of rounds downrange, but you are not a novice shooter.
No, definitely not. And I'm definitely confident behind a rifle. That's definitely a non-issue. It's just like like anything else. You trying to put a limit in your head, like I'm only going to shoot whatever. This is my max. I'm going to max it out. Like I'm not shooting past 40, right? And the second the buck shows up at 45, you're like, I guess I'll shoot at 45. So
Oh,
it's hard.
dude.
I have the same
Yeah.
problem as you. I just get excited, man. And at that point, it's like it goes out the window. It's like it's close enough, which it's a bad habit, but then you think about it right afterwards. But if for the most part, so far it's worked out. I haven't wounded and I haven't done anything bad, so it's all good.
Yeah, man, Sam, I'm going to knock on wood, actually, because I think everyone has that problem. Like having the self discipline to say, no, this is not an ethical shot. I think it takes a lot more years of experience in the field than you and I have to be
Oh,
able
for
to do
sure.
that. And, I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get there, but it's one of those things. Like I did it on the first shot on pronghorn. I had shot out. I was practicing at 1,000 yards, and I was like, "All right, 500's my cutoff." Freaking buck with 9 lives is at 600, and I'm like, "All right, I can do this." Take the shot, misrange him. Actually, range some sagebrush. He's probably at like 700 yards. That was a nightmare. And then I did the same thing with that one. What was it? A fork buck last year in Montana on the
Yep.
last day. That was my shot. He started at like 200. We tried to get in position, took too long. He went down the ridge, disappeared, ran up to the ridge. Next thing you know, he's at 500 and I'm taking a shot. Next thing you know, he's at 800. And I'm like, son of a bitch. And then we tried, and you dropped your rifle, and I was like, "You're never gonna find it, you idiot!" And then we found it eventually.
Yeah, that was one of my brightest moments, dude.
I couldn't believe you just dropped it on the ground. You're like, "We'll find it. It'll be okay."
In the sage, just screw it.
Oh, it's okay. You could have shot. You had a backup rifle too, which I think your
Yeah.
dad had to use, right? He had to use the backup rifle because his. And he does he still blame you for that?
Oh yeah, he's still butthurt about it. Yeah,
Of course
he's
he
still
is.
mad. Yeah, because apparently it's my fault. Somehow the ACU trigger on that Savage failed.
Yeah, well, he's got you building a new rifle for him, right?
Yeah, I have to get around to that. With everything else going on lately, it's been kind of tough. But yeah, he doesn't know what he wants, man. I keep bringing stuff up to him, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't know."
Yeah, I
He's,
mean, he's going through a lot right now. We won't talk about the
yeah,
details, but he's going through a lot.
yep. But even though he's doing all that, he's every time I talk to him, he's like, "Oh, did you find any nice rifles?" I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. Just tell me what you want, and I'll get it ordered. It'll be here. Like it's not that hard."
Yeah. So let me think about all the other hunts we've done. So we talked about the first Montana hunt. We kind of talked about the second Montana hunt. Utah twice, and Wyoming. I think that's all of them. That's all the ones
Yeah.
that we've done together, anyway. So what's your favorite memory from our hunts? What's your if you had to pick one, what would it be? The ones we've done together.
We've done with the ones we've done together, man. Is hands down would have been Wyoming, and me and our friend whose place we were on, sitting in the truck while we were driving, and we located that buck, ended up shooting, and having just like this super awesome view of looking back at you and my dad running up out of your car, laying down on that hill, and getting adjusted and taking that shot. That's one of the coolest moments, man. It was just so fun to watch. We had and it was weird because the road kind of had a curve, so we had a different angle. We were kind of looking at you guys sideways and looking at the antelope at the same time. It was so like you couldn't set it up any better, and it was just so fun watching you get excited. Even though you were, maybe 200 yards away from us, you and my old man back there, and you guys got getting all excited. You made a good shot, and then you just take off running at this damn thing when it goes down. That was ridiculous. This is the most ridiculous thing in the world.
would have been great to get that on camera. We don't.
Oh
We
yeah,
I sucked at recording video that time, and I've been really bad about recording hunts ever since that. The only one I got really good footage of was the first Utah hunt, and since then I've just been so focused on actually hunting that I never end up recording video. That I will never forget that moment. We're driving. I'm like Debbie Downer, and your dad is standing in the bed of my truck, holding on to my rooftop tent, looking for animals while we're driving on all of these dirt roads and stuff. And he just smacks the side of the truck, and he's like, "Stop! Get out!" And I'm like, "What the heck are you doing, man?" And I just turn around to look at him, and he is running to the side, like not even waiting for me. I'm like, I guess I need to get the freaking gun. So I go get the rifle. I'm like, what is he looking at? And I'm like, there's a group of antelope. I'm going to go get in range. And I don't even think he actually helped. I mean, he obviously spotted it. But when it comes to the shooting, I'm pretty sure I ranged and I did everything. And I was freaking out because when I saw them, they didn't spook. I was like, oh no, they're driving around the corner. I hope they don't spook the group. And fortunately, you guys stopped. No one spooked anything. And he was moving, and I misjudged the spot a little bit. I hit a little back, but I used to be so terrified of how all of that would go down, and I didn't hit as far back as I thought I did. There were no guts or anything like that. Like it was fine. He died 30 yards maybe,
yeah.
like, and within seconds he fell. But yeah, man, I dropped, ran after him, and I was like, if I need to put another shot in him, I need to do it right now. Da, 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 da.
That
But no, that was a good shot. That was a
was
fun
awesome.
trip.
That
Yeah.
was awesome. That was awesome getting him out of there, getting him hung up in the tree. Like that was so that felt cool, man. Like because mine we took care of on the ground, and my dad's too, and then yours we got to get up in one of them big cottonwoods in that creek bottom, and we got it hung up, got it taken care of. It was fun, man. It was cool because it was hot, man. Your shot, yours like middle of the day. It had to be like
Mm-hmm.
85 degrees. It was crazy.
At least we were wearing t-shirts. It was brutal.
Yeah, it was pretty
I
bad.
hate hunting in t-shirts. It feels wrong.
It does feel wrong, but that's how Pennsylvania feels right now. It's wild here.
Yeah, man. Sunday we were hunting with t-shirts. I'm excited because it's in the 60s right now, and well, it might even be colder at this point. I don't know what the weather is, but it's today is the coolest day we've had in over a week. Yeah, it's 63 out right now, so I'm very excited about that because I could put a dang camo hoodie on and be in good shape.
Yeah, I think we've only had like 2 days of frost this year in this area, which is very unusual for us. We're normally pretty cold, so it's been kind of an oddball year. I actually think that the other day it was kind of slow, and like I have a lot of neighborhood deer. I kind of gauge activity that way, and the last couple of days they've been very, very sluggish and very slow. I'm not seeing a lot of them
Hmm.
until nighttime to way after dark, and I think it's just too hot. I mean,
Yeah,
75 degrees on November 1st is wild for Northeast Pennsylvania. That's crazy weather.
it's 75 right now.
I think it might have cooled down a little bit, but yeah, it was about 75 around noon.
We didn't even hit 70 today. I think the highest we had was like 65, 66, something like that.
I was telling my boy on the bus this morning it was 63 degrees, and I was putting him on the bus at 8 a.m. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
So
think
I
what
think,
my favorite memory is if I had to pick one. Honestly, my favorite memory is probably you taking your pronghorn day one. And I say that because I was just so excited for you to take an animal and for us to have success, especially because like I wasn't sure how things were going to go with, I mean, like the guy that owned the land, he's like one of our really good friends now. I mean, I talk to the guy every other day, I think at this point.
yeah.
Um, and wanted you guys to have success. I didn't know if we were going to ever get an invite back, which they ended up selling the land. So, that obviously isn't happening. But I remember the excitement I had watching you stalk in, get within the 400 yards, close the distance, take two shots, and then just watching the pronghorn go down. I remember jumping in my truck and driving next to a ditch that you crawled in. And I was like so excited. I was just bouncing all over the place. Like I definitely did not do my suspension any favors that day. And I was just so happy. Like that was the moment where I was like, oh my God, we can do this. Like we can find success somewhere that isn't on deer, like whitetail deer
Yeah.
in the east on the east. Um, yeah, man, that's probably my favorite moment.
Yeah, because we definitely got our ass kicked twice before that. We got our ass kicked in Utah, we got our ass kicked in Montana, and it really felt like, oh boy, like, because whether you like it or not, you're coming from the east and it's so far, right? So you're going so far, and it's like the travel and the logistics are so, like, it's kind of wild. And then you're trying to explain to your significant other and everybody else that like what you're trying to do, and it seems kind of ridiculous. Like, yeah, I'm going to go there for 6 days and try to kill something. And then twice in a row you come back and like you don't. It's hard to justify the success you have even though you didn't get one, right? Like most people don't understand just like getting in range or seeing them and locating and all that stuff you end up doing, like how much you're actually learning through that process, because it's not like a physical result. So like
Mhm.
yeah, definitely Wyoming was cool. We had everybody was successful on that trip and it was a lot of fun. I think that was awesome.
Yeah, that was an awesome time. Before we get into our current hunting season and what's coming up, what do you think are some of your number one lessons that you would share with people that might be listening to this? Or what are some of the things that you think you've learned over the 6 years we've been doing this?
Okay, so for Western specifically, I would say
Yeah.
train harder than you think you need to. That's definitely number one. And I'm a bad example of that, right? Like you said, I when we went to Montana the first time, I still had a beer belly. You know what I mean? Like and like throwing a heavy pack, just rock. Anytime you can get those miles in, that's a big thing. And move as much as you can. Shoot more than you think you need to. When you feel really confident in your rifle and you feel confident with your bow, shoot more. Do those cold shots. I randomly, just like you do, take my bow out, and even before I go out, if I go out today with my bow, before I get in the truck, I'll pull it out of the back seat, throw one in the target out of the driver just to make sure, like all the time, randomly, just pull it out, shoot. And the other thing is, get your head straight, because I know something I really struggle with. I know something you struggle with is that feeling like I want to get home. Like, oh, like I start to feel guilty. I get 3 4 days into a trip and I start to feel guilty. Like, oh boy, I'm over here having fun, and I don't know, I've mentioned it before. I have a special needs boy, so it's like, oh, I'm over here having fun, and they're at home dealing with all that. So it's he could be difficult sometimes. So I start to feel a little guilty, but I know inside that it's just in my head, me being it's that bitch voice, like, hey, you could leave right now. This doesn't have to suck anymore, right? You don't have to be out
Hmm.
here at 5 in the morning freezing your ass off. You could just sit in your truck and go home. So that's something I struggle with. So definitely get your head straight, get all that together, and I think that's going to make you more successful, because the more time you spend out there and the more miserable you could get used to being, the better off you'll be.
This is definitely type two fun. The
Yes.
mental portion of that game is really hard. And I don't, the only thing I'm going to add as far as lessons learned, and I'm sharing this because we've talked about a lot of getting our asses kicked and how difficult it's been. I don't want to discourage anybody from trying. I've done some consulting now where I'm trying to help people go on their first Western hunt. And I've met with 5, 6 people. I haven't done it too much. And the biggest problem that everyone seems to have is they just don't know where to get started and they're intimidated. And it seems super intimidating, between the different draw systems and the rules for each state. But man, we just pick one and go. Like you're unless you go guided, and even if you go guided, there's no guarantees. You're not going to have success on your first hunt, most likely. You should just assume you're not going to, but work your ass off like as if you're going to, right? But you have to get started. It's like you just have to start. Like, and that's the thing that I think that's really what the last lesson that I would add is if this is something that you want to do, if chasing elk and mule deer or pronghorn is like a thing that you really want to do, just do it. Just set a timeline. Give yourself like say, all right, next year I'm going on a hunt. Start researching now. There's going to be some applications are going to start soon, and just pick a state, pick a tag, pick a hunt, and just go. You have to start. It gets easier. Like all of the complicated stuff. I mean, Peter and I can make our plan for years from now and talk about draw odds and everything, but it has to be hard before it can be easy. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. So don't be discouraged by how, like, all the struggles that we've had, because I wouldn't take any of it back. I would, if we could do it all over again, I don't care if I make all of the same mistakes. Those lessons that you learn, the laughs and the stupid things that happen along the way are what make it so much fun. Like I wouldn't change anything. I mean, hunting has completely changed my life, and it's crazy to think how different things were 6 years ago. Like both of our lives were completely different 6 years ago, and hunting didn't directly change that, right? Like we've just grown, we've had different things happen, but hunting has become such a huge part of both of our lives, and I'm just so thankful for all of it. You know what I mean?
I think so, dude, and like it makes us better friends, right? Because we always have this thing that connects us, and we get to introduce other people to it. And like you said, that group text we have, and we got guys getting excited. Somebody got their first deer a couple weeks ago, and like that's so much fun, right? Like all that, and you start to build your own little community with that, and make everybody's life a little easier. But I think it's definitely when you spend those times that suck, you do those trips, to make those connections. It's more meaningful than like we were just hanging out drinking a beer, right? Like you definitely get to know a guy a lot more when you're sleeping in a tent, 10 feet away, and you're freezing your ass off than you do. You know what I mean?
Or the wind
Just
is blowing so hard that you're worried your tent is going to get ripped off of your truck.
or that it kind of folds up while you're in it.
Yeah,
Definitely, it's definitely a lot of fun,
yeah.
man.
All right. We're both running out of daylight here. We
Yeah.
gotta go get out there. So just what is your plan for the rest of the PA season? I know we're both going to Texas in January to close out the season, but what do you got going on in PA?
PA, hopefully, hoping for a little luck in archery. Our archery seasons here is pretty awesome. It runs till like mid November. So starting right now, we should be getting in a pretty good swing of things right now. So I'm just hoping to get as many evenings as I can out, sit as much as I could, and see if we can find a little success. For me, it doesn't matter. I really don't get a lot of success at home, so I'd love to just find a buck with my bow. And then come rifle season, I got a couple doe tags to fill. So, that's all. Fill the freezer, hang out, take it easy this year. I've got a lot of other stuff going on that I'm working on, so it's just a little tough to find the time. But anytime I do, I try to get out there.
Yeah, same here. Our season's a little more generous than yours. We've got another week and a half of bow, and then muzzleloader happens. So I'll be toting the muzzy here very soon. Before this podcast drops, I will probably have gone on my first muzzleloader hunt, and that runs through January 5th, I think January 5th. But at that point, I'll be I'll be shooting the rifle, making sure I'm dialed in for Texas when we go down to South Texas, and then I've got the muzzy hunt with Carrie. Um, yeah, I'm excited. I got the one guy that I'm trying to mentor. We got his bow dialed in this last weekend. I can't believe the shoddy work that a bow shop did for him. I mean, I literally couldn't believe it. I mean, when they put the vanes on one of his arrows, they literally glued two arrows together. Like he had to cut the vane off of one. I was just like, you paid for this? And they're not like, I'm not going to name the shop, but when you Google Nashville archery shop, there's like five, and it's one of the best rated ones. I'm like, really? Okay. So I got him fixed up at home, which I don't have the best equipment, but he's dialed in. He's starting to shoot, so hopefully we can get him out sometime this season. Fortunately, here you can hunt archery all year long. So even during the muzzy and the gun season, you can bring a bow out, so he can hunt all year with it. And then my wife has been hunting with me too. She's been practicing out in the yard. So, and I honestly, I probably shouldn't say this. I honestly don't care if I fill a tag. I'm just happy to be out there learning public again, trying to play the chess match with the deer and the other hunters and figure it out. It's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yep, it's the same way, man. I've been hunting a new area, and it's just been fun getting out there, and I've consistently been seeing good sign and good deer. It's just a matter of making it happen. But it doesn't matter if I fill one or not. I always have fun with it.
Oh yeah. All right, buddy. Well, we both need to get out there and go hunt tonight. So I appreciate you coming on and talking like always. This is I owe you a ton because I wouldn't have this podcast. I wouldn't have any of the animals I have if you didn't ask me to start in the first place. So I'm really grateful for you. And
Yeah,
yeah, good luck
yeah.
tonight,
I
man.
probably would have frozen in Montana by myself, so we're even.
All right, buddy. Shoot straight, and let me know if you get anything. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.